You're supposed to say to your body, okay, get your shit together. Let's do it. Let's do it the right way now. And it's like, what? Screw you, man. Like, you haven't trained me that way.
Yeah. It's never seen it before.
So much of what we do is so illogical in this sport. Like, it just does not make sense. And I can't believe it took me so long to realize this.
James Fike is a competitive swimmer who's racing faster at 41 years old than during his college career at the University of Texas with the Longhorns. He currently holds 7 U.S. Masters records in the 50, 100, 200 breaststroke, and the 100 IM. He's a huge supporter and the result of what he calls swimming differently. It's essentially a training philosophy in which he prioritizes the things that contribute to his race efforts and drops anything that's considered excess. And that's exactly what James and I talk about in this podcast. Also, 2 things I'd like to mention about James is that he is the founder and CEO of Fike Swim Products. So go ahead and check out his page right here. He's developed a number of training tools with the sole purpose of making people swim faster. He also sells a number of swimsuits with some very cool graphic prints on them. Secondly is that James hosts his very own YouTube vlog where he goes into all the topics that we cover here in great detail and more. So go ahead and check out his YouTube channel as well. So with that, I hope you guys enjoy the conversation. I know for a fact you're going to take away something valuable from it, especially if you're a swimmer. If you'd like to encourage the podcast on my end, please check out the Patreon link that's in the description. It's a great way to support me and the podcast. So with that, my name's Alex Shozda. This is the Shozda Show. Let's begin. So kind of steering it more into your direction of things. Do you ever look at those college guys and think to yourself, you know, if they swam different, the way that you like to swim different, things would be a little different?
Man, that is a question I ask myself almost daily. Because it's a fascinating discussion to have, right? It's like, okay, here I am on my soapbox telling people, this is all wrong. We're going about this all wrong. Swim different, swim different. It naturally leads to the question, well, does that mean that these guys who are just, freakishly fast, they could go even faster? I haven't arrived at an answer to that yet. But I do think that the short answer is yes. I do think that even those guys are doing a bit more than they need to. Somebody like Marchand, let's say, who has to be really well trained to be able to go that fast in a 400 IM. Maybe he's not doing too much. But my general belief about this sport is that most people are doing more than they need to. And I think that in general, we as a sport, we tend to view the training cycle, start to finish, as one very long grind followed by a very short taper that is magical almost. And you know this as a swimmer, like you hear people say things like, "Oh, I just missed my taper. I missed it by like 2 days." Like, no, BS.
Yeah. The analogy I like to put, kind of the traditional mindset of a taper, is like you're trying to sharpen a very, very fine knife at a really low angle, right? And like you just have a few cuts where that knife's still sharp before it dulls out.
Yeah, but the way
But in reality, or I guess in your experience.
In my experience, taper, and there was even a study, I wish I could, I've been looking for this study because I think Swam put an article on this even many years ago. And there was a study that came out. It was a small sample size. So it's not like it's that great of a
an academic.
Yeah, it's not that great of a reference. But there was a study that showed high-level swimmers could hold their taper for up to 8 weeks. Okay. Now that's a little bit extreme. Like I do a 6-week taper. I would not go to 8 weeks, but if you just take that possibility that you could perform equally well at, let's say, 3 weeks as you could 8 weeks, why on earth are we over here calculating down to the minute? Like, okay, I got to hit my taper right at 6 p.m. on, 2 weeks before the big meet, or it's all shot to hell. Right? Like that sounds ridiculous when you say it, But that's how we operate. Like that's kind of the mindset that we have. It's like, oh, I just missed my taper. No, you just didn't taper long enough. You started your taper way too late, because when we get into taper, our body and our minds mess with us and we start second guessing every little thing. Am I overtrained? Am I over rested?
Yeah.
Where am I?
Stress is almost toxic for your performance too.
Yeah. The stress is no good. And so we go back and forth like this. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And so many swimmers hate taper, not just because it's stressful, but because they feel like they are out of shape. And they feel like they don't really have a handle on what's going on, compared to when they are grinding out day in and day out. They feel like they have a handle on that. They have practices where and meets where they step up and they go fast. And they're like, okay, I just need just a little touch of rest and I'm going to blow it out. And then that doesn't happen. They're like, what? Oh, I just missed my taper by 2 days. No. You just didn't emphasize taper enough. And you didn't prepare for taper enough throughout the season, because taper isn't something that you just spring on your body at the last minute. You have to prep for taper like anything else, which means incorporating recovery throughout your training cycle. If all you do is grind and bury yourself into a hole, there's no amount of taper that's going to get you to a place where you want to be, because you've done too much damage to your body leading up to that point.
So then how do you balance out your own workout structure? What is the difference between your grind phase, quote unquote, and taper? If you can't necessarily bury yourself, right?
Well, no, I can bury myself.
But not over and over to the point where you can't recover and reset that cycle.
There's a difference between grinding and working hard and getting yourself into a hole. You never want to be in a hole, ever. I think too often swimmers end up in that hole, and it's almost something that we're like proud of. It's almost a goal in and of itself. It's like, oh, I got to work so hard that I just kill myself. No. You want to be in a place where you can perform somewhat consistently. Not all the time. That's not going to happen. It's unrealistic. But somewhat consistently, where you can perform at a peak, where you can really lay it out there and give it your all and feel somewhat, fatigued, somewhat broken down, but you can really step up and put in a good performance and not just make it through. All too often, we just make it through. And so when you're looking at a taper, okay, versus training, for me, I go crazy intense for 3 weeks, hard 3 weeks, and then I recover for a week where it looks just like a taper. But those 3 weeks, my body is sore, it is broken. I just finished my first week of a 3-week cycle this week, and throughout the week, my hamstrings hated me. My quads were about to pull, and my lats were on fire for about half of it because of the work that I had done in the gym and, in the pool. But I hadn't pushed myself to a place where I couldn't perform in the water. I hadn't taken it that far. And that's my goal, is always go as hard as I can for 3 weeks. Take myself right up to the precipice of the hole, and time it such that at the end of the 3 weeks, I'm at the edge of the hole and I can pull back for 1 week so that I don't go in the hole, and I can do it all over again.
Gotcha. So it's all about kind of, I don't want to use volatility because it's a bad word, but you're constantly going to that point where you can have the performance, letting yourself recover and trying to hit that peak as many times as possible. So it's almost like reps of grinding yourself out, recover, grinding yourself out. And the number of reps that you can get within a training cycle, does that have anything to do with how well you taper off? Do you think about that? Or is it more specifically what you're doing within those 3 weeks?
It's really specific to those 3 weeks. Again, the intensity is the volume, the yardage is very low. When you look at just my volume taper, my hard training volume on paper, you're like, all you do is taper, because I max out oftentimes at like 2,500. And I do that 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. In the beginning of a season, I might get to 35 or even 4,000 is crazy.
What's the reasoning before that?
It happens. For what?
For at the beginning of the season, you're stepping up your yardage a little bit.
That's that whole base building, right? Okay. That we do. And
so there's still a little validity to that traditional to a certain point.
Yeah. Like, in fact, if you look at the first couple of weeks when I come back from into a new cycle, into a new training period, it doesn't look terribly different from some of the traditional stuff that you might find on a club team. But it very quickly breaks away from that and becomes almost entirely breaststroke, the highest intensity that can be performed for a very low amount of yardage. Like I said, 2,500-ish. Yesterday, I had a super hard practice, 2,700, including maybe 2,800, including 600 to warm down.
So then how much of that were you doing at race?
700, 800. 800. So the main set was 32 25s on a minute, no pullout, straight to breaststroke, high tempo, all out. And when you hear a set like that, you're like, ooh, a minute, that's luxurious. Like, I like the sound of that kind of.
But I'm sure you get into 12 or 13 of them and things start to hurt.
It doesn't even take that long. I mean, shoot, I've only done the set twice. It was gifted to me by a club coach here local who trains a lot of breaststroke talent, kids who are my top competition. And the first time I did it, it was the day before tapering for sectionals, and so I was broken, and I started feeling it on number like 2, and I didn't make it through the whole thing. I didn't skip. Sorry. I backed way the hell off of like 4 of them. I think even 1 or 2, I did freestyle. I just like shut it down, easy freestyle. This time I made it all the way through. I was really proud of myself. I was really proud of my body. I gave myself a pat on the back because, again, hamstrings hated me. My quads were about to pull. It was
So
rough.
Is that another part of your training philosophy too? Because you mentioned the first time you did it, you took a few off. So do you go to a certain point where you start to see your technique failing, and then instead of just grinding through it and burying yourself through a hole, you back off and let yourself reset so you can keep performing at a high level?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's absolute. That's a key tenet of what I do. There is absolutely no point in training yourself with bad technique. Technique, in my opinion, is the cap on your potential. If you are training shitty technique that you do not want to have in a race for a long period of time, what's the point of that? Then you expect to go to a meet and be like, I talk to my body a lot, and we have conversations. I try to listen, but you're supposed to say to your body, okay, get your shit together. Let's do it. Let's do it the right way now. And it's like, what? Screw you, man. Like, you haven't trained me that way.
Yeah, it's never seen it before.
So much of what we do is so illogical in this sport. Like, it just does not make sense. And I can't believe it took me so long to realize this. But my favorite set to pick on is 100 100s. It's almost a staple. It's like a rite of passage in our sport. And you see it every holiday period, like New Year's practice, whatever. And like, why hasn't anyone enough? I'm sure some have, but why haven't enough people step back to view a practice like that and look at these swimmers, these kids, and see like, okay, these turns suck. They're slow as hell. The push-offs are terrible because the swimmers are just dead tired. The technique is sloppy. This is how we want to race when we get to the end of the meet. But then we defend it, but we go, no, you're missing the point. This is about toughness. We're getting mentally tough. It's like bullshit. I'm tired of that. It is such crap. We get The way we justify stuff like this is we say, well, this is going to make them so tough that when they get behind the blocks for their mile swim or their 400 IM swim, they're going to be thinking, I got this. And they're going to laugh at it. No, they are scared shitless. And they are still thinking, oh my God, how am I going to perform on this? Because I haven't performed all year long. And I know this because I listen to these kids when they're coming back from races and I'm in the warm up, warm down pool, either getting ready for my race or warming down for my race. And they're coming back, talking to their friends going, that sucked. I haven't swum well in that in over a year. And the other guy's like, yeah, I know. God, that was awful. But we view that as like, well, that's just how it goes. Like that's what you're supposed, in season, you're supposed to suck. And then you're supposed to pull it together at the end of the year. And that's crap. Like the beauty of what I do is that it builds confidence. I never really had confidence going at, once I passed a certain point in my career where I was like getting older and bigger and stronger and times were just coming easy, right? When I got to a certain point in my career, like I lost confidence. And, when I was in the latter half of my college career, it felt like a crapshoot. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, where it's like, I'm going to like fake some confidence and, yeah, I got this.
Yeah. You kind of tell yourself in a mental game, like you got to think positive and everything's going to work out. But if you don't have the reps to support it, I was in the same boat swimming college. I was telling you, I was maybe 46 low, 100 freestyler, 20.50 freestyler. When I got to college, I swam 4 or 5 meets and I was seconds off my 50 time every single meet, multiple seconds off the 100 time.
Yeah.
And it's that same kind of mental battle. Okay. Positive attitude. You just got to bury through it. But realistically, if you don't see yourself doing it or doing it close in practice, you don't have that physical representation of it. It's tough to have anything tangible to be positive of.
Yeah. Now look, I'm not saying I don't have doubts when I get behind the blocks. I do. That's just natural. That's part of it. That's just nerves.
But I'm sure you can also look back to, the last meet a month ago or 2 months ago, you went.
But I get to look back at how I've performed and point to tangible things, be like, that was good. That was good. That was good. That was good. And I can look at all these things and ignore what my body is telling me, sending mixed signals like, oh, maybe you're not ready. Maybe you're over rested or, all this stuff that we go through. But for the most part, these kids, when they go through all that stuff in season and they try to psych themselves up, there's still a big part of them that is going, dude, you don't got it. And they know that. And then, they don't perform the way they wanted to. And this is why swimmers are so great. They go right back to the pool, back to the drawing board. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go harder now.
Being comfortable with what you know.
Yeah. And that's always the answer, right? And so I do a lot of lessons. I coach people on the side. And it's always hilarious. I will ask a swimmer, like a high school swimmer, what are your goals? Okay. And without fail, it is always, okay, I want to make state. I want to win state. I want to go to junior nationals, all these things, right? These big lofty goals. And I'm like, okay, good. Those are good. How are you going to get there? And it's like I just spoke to them in a different language and they go, is this and like their facial expression is, okay, this is a trick question. What does he want me to say? I'm going to go with the tried and true work hard. That is always the answer. Right. Always the one I get. I'm going to work really hard. But where are you going to put that effort?
Yeah, what does that look like?
Where are you going to put that energy? And what I ultimately get to with this period of torture that I subject them to is, what are your daily goals that are going to get you where you need to go for the big goal, right? They don't have those. No swimmer has daily goals, in my experience. And what's more, I have yet to meet a swimmer, a high school level age group, whatever swimmer, who knows why they're doing what they're doing. Okay. Why is it important for you to something as simple as look down when you're swimming freestyle? so that, why do we not want our head to elevate when we swim freestyle? They have no idea. I'd say, our hips start to drag and that creates resistance and makes it harder for us, all these things. And they're like, oh, they're just robots. They just do what they are told day in and day out. They show up, it's on the whiteboard. Okay, that's what we're doing. And the coach, in fairness, does not have time to go, okay, you need to remember to do X, Y, Z, A through Z, and you to all like 50 swimmers or whatever, right? And so all these kids are left with is the whiteboard telling them what to do. The whiteboard says, all right, we're going 100, 100s or whatever, right? And it's like, hold best average. And so they just dive in and they put out effort. Oh, yeah. It's like a shotgun, scatters, effort.
I mean, I'm guilty of it. You
do we all are.
Set like that, you turn on the mental jukebox, play some tunes in your head, and you just check out for the next hour. Yeah. I mean, that was me from probably 14 to 16 years old. Then we had Coach Greg Gillette who came in, who was a lot of your style of training and just completely turned me around as a swimmer.
Oh, well, good.
We'll go back into your stories.
And so, I know that oftentimes when I preach this stuff, I sound a bit unrealistic and almost, tear it down and start over kind of philosophy. But honestly, like, as somebody who can empathize so much with people who have gone through such challenging years of their swimming, not hitting best times, not going the times they know they are capable of going, and to see the cycle just played out over and over and over again, and there's no change. Like, we like to think that this sport has come so far in 50 years. And we look back at the 70s and are like, oh, that was crazy.
And it's easy to look at times and just see times getting faster and use that as justification.
Yeah, and I'll get to that in a second. That really bothers me. But we are still very much rooted mentally in the 60s and 70s way of thinking. We have not changed as much as we would like to think we have. And, to see so many swimmers disappointed with their seasons, and to watch them swim a race and they could go faster with something as simple as, don't breathe as you're flipping into the turn. But clearly they've just been allowed to get away with this for all these years, all these things that they could and should be doing differently. But in our sport, in this country, it is get them onto a team, throw them onto a team. I think partly because teams need numbers to make their team work, right? Financially. It's like, get them onto a team and get them going, and they will figure it out as they go. And then the kids who don't make it, we say, oh, it wasn't meant to be.
Right. Or they're just not swimmers.
Yeah. The kids who burn out, they weren't meant for this. They're just not tough like swimmers. Okay, some of that. But maybe we shouldn't be so prideful about that little aspect. Maybe we're losing out on some talent that, we otherwise could have in this sport, simply because we are too stuck to our traditional sets that make us feel like swimmers. But we get these kids who they don't achieve what they wanted to. And I'm not saying everybody is going to be an Olympian, everybody's going to break a record, but having been somebody who started this whole journey out of mine just with the simple goal of breaking 55 in the 100 breaststroke, and knowing there are so many other people out there who are like, I know I could have gone this time, and maybe that would have qualified me for this meet. I just wish I could have done that one thing. And to know that is fixable if we just take a step back in the sport for a second and we ask ourselves, why? Why are we doing things the way we are doing them? Other than, this is the way it has always been done. And to your point, look, it's working. Swimflation. Marchand is killing it, right? All these guys, the system is working, and that is bogus. Those guys could succeed if you gave them just had them play water polo every day. A little bit of a stretch, but you know what I mean, right? They could do well under USRPT. They could be doing well under like Dick Schulberg, Germantown Academy crazy, and everything in between.
Gotcha. So you're saying it's more so a case of their training character and maybe some genetics, their build, just them as athletes.
Yeah, we point to the very talented, the top 1%ers or half a percenters, and we use them as the example. Like, look, the system is working, and you need to get on board with this, and because you could, you should be making gains like they are, if you're a real swimmer, but maybe you're not a real swimmer, or maybe you've just gone as far as you can. And that just eats me up. I think about all the people like myself who just gave up and said, well, I guess that's it. Now I cling on to this career, this sport, maybe more than most do. I think some people have a countdown to when they're done with their college swimming and they're like, yes, I'm free.
Happy to never get back. We can both kind of relate on that one.
But I do think that there are a lot of people who leave unsatisfied.
I mean, I think you're the perfect case too, because you've been through it, you understand it from that perspective, and not only do you have a whole different philosophy about it, you've proven it in a way that gets a lot of attention too. So I'm sure people will listen. So if you were to define it really shortly and sweetly, what is swim different?
What is swim different? I guess if you want short and sweet, then it would have to be something like,
I mean, I want to get into it, but just to preface it,
how you swim each yard matters more than how many yards you swim. And it's the quality, it's the whole quality over quantity, but, just done with a little bit more intensity and purpose. Because oftentimes I think quality over quantity gets written off as this like cute little tagline. But the way I apply it just makes the most of what you have in the pool, and nothing more. That's really it. It's do what you need to do to accomplish your goals and forget the rest. We have a lot in this sport. We do a lot in practice that there is no justification for it other than time fill. I was on a team for a while after college. One of them, the pre-main set, right? It's like, okay, we finished warm up, and that was
so we need to do like
2,000,
1,400 yards of pull.
Well, yeah, or kick, right? In this case, it was 8/100s kick. It was so common, and if there's a purpose behind it, okay. Like if you're gonna tell, all right, you guys who suck at flutter kicking, I want you working hard on this. We're going to descend 1 to 4, 5 to 8, and I want you to start off strong and just tear it up. But all too often, it's like, all right, guys, 8/100s kick on 2. I'll write the main set on the board while you're doing that.
Right, and everybody goes off with their kickboards and they're talking about what they had for lunch or what they did last weekend.
Yeah, it's just junk. It's junk, garbage yardage. And so if I don't want to make this sound too narrow in scope, but if it does not advance my 100 or 200 breaststroke, I don't see a reason in doing it. I don't do it.
Actually, I want to touch on that. Is that a key part of your training too? That your events are very specific, 50, 100, 200 breaststroke and nothing else? Or do you think it's still very practical to apply your kind of training to somebody who's swimming, let's say 50 through 200 free plus 100 and 200 backstroke?
Yeah. I mean, I did a vlog on this actually. Can can you, like, it was, basically, can you apply my methodology to a distance swimmer?
I'll link it right here.
So go there. And yes, the short, yes, but it has to be adjusted. A distance swimmer can't do exactly what I do. It's meant for breaststroke, but you can adjust it. And so, maybe you wouldn't top out at 20, you wouldn't average 2,500 yards. Maybe, case by case, maybe you average 34,000 yards. I'm just throwing this out. It's more, but you still do not lose sight of the fact that when you train for your 500, your mile, and you don't throw in like a breaststroke set just because, like, we need to mix it up a little bit. And so we're going to go 10-200 breaststroke as a distance, stuff like that. It still is very much, and I've worked with distance swimmers on this. We are only preparing you to race for a single mile, a single 100. And that is what we really lose sight of. You wanted me to sum up my training in a nutshell. When you compare it to traditional swimming, which seems to be, all right, we are preparing you to grind for a whole bunch of hundreds or 200s, whatever the case may be. Mine is, I want to be the best I can be at a single 100, at a single 200. I don't give a damn how many 200s I can do on whatever interval. That's not an event. So if I don't need to do that, then I will not do that. Some people do have to do more yardage. Like, by more yardage, I mean more yardage in a block. Like, some people are really good at doing a bunch of 200s in practice and holding it. I can't. That's not me. But I'm not going to be out there doing, and I don't recommend this to anyone I work with, doing more than you have to get the job done.
I love where you're going with that. And if you don't mind, I want to share an analogy as it's just ringing in my brain. Hear what you think about it. So in engineering, I did a lot with automotive. There's this kind of beautiful idea that the perfectly engineered race car would fail right when it crossed the finish line, right? That it was so light and it had so much power and everything. The safety factor was just 1.01 so that everything would just give out as soon as it finished the finish line.
Yeah.
So a similar concept.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, going way back to the taper conversation, a lot of people start confusing their training with their racing when it comes time to taper. And they get into a taper and they go, oh my gosh, I think I'm out of shape. I don't think I can, do a bunch of hundreds like I used to. Great. Yeah, you shouldn't be able to. That is what we lose sight of. When you go through taper, you are not getting ready to race 10 100s. You are getting ready to race 1 100. Your body should not be in shape to do 10 100s anymore. When by the end of taper, you should not technically be in shape. You should only be in shape to race a single 100 or whatever, 200 mile. Take your pick. That's it.
So when did you start catching on to that? And when did you start implementing it?
Well, clearly way too late.
Right. I think you're a great argument for it's never too late.
Yeah. But then you get into the whole what's my lifetime potential debate versus where I'm at currently. Because I will not argue that the peak age for a guy swimmer is probably somewhere in the like mid to late 20s. I think that still holds. And so am I ever going to hit my lifetime potential? I think the answer is no. But I still think I have potential out there yet to get. So anyway, what were we talking about before that?
I like where you're going. What's next? I'll circle back after. The lifetime potential. I hear a lot of rumors on YouTube channels and the web that you're going for Olympic trials.
Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, I suck at long course.
You think it's because you're pretty athletic, at least in relative to swimmers, and you're missing out on a turn?
See, okay, now you got me
And a
on
pull up.
That's another tangent right there. That gets me a little bit. This whole idea that swimmers are swimmers because they're not athletic, because they can't do land sports. Yes, we have some of that for sure.
Not necessarily where I was going.
Yeah, I know.
I agree with you there, but I hear you out that that's a very common belief.
Yeah, but where I'm going with this, that's my wife, Rebecca.
Pleasure to meet you.
Where I'm going with this is we do not incorporate enough athleticism into our training because we view swimmers as these weird little water mammals who can't exist on land. And so, we get your tired masses who can't handle the land sports. And so we kind of take that almost as a sign like, yeah, swimmers just need to swim. And anything else you can do, that is icing on the cake. That dry land stuff, that's nice. That's good. Have at. But when you start looking at the pie of where you can allocate your time, your effort, I would argue that on average, your coach, your parent, your swimmer, they would typically say swimming should account for at least 80%. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if you got people up to 90%. And all that other stuff, that's cute. That's nice. You go do that. But this is what matters. Because we're swimmers. After all, we don't do land stuff. And it makes sense because, it's a different medium. It's a different way of existing. And so you don't need to be good at jumping, at explosiveness, all these land things that other sports need. You just have to be good at swimming. And that is one of the things that we have it so wrong, so completely wrong. The sport has evolved to a point where even the movements within the strokes are explosive. You take breaststroke, you take butterfly, explosive, aggressive. You need to be able to lunge forward.
And it all needs to be connected too, fluid and continuous.
Right. And that's athleticism in and of itself. The push-offs off the walls, the dives from the blocks, the flip turns, like all these things. There are really good ways on land to not just work on those, but to improve those that you cannot do in the water. And so I hear, we all joke as swimmers about that. Oh, we're swimmers, blah, blah. But no, that is one of the things that has to change. So that was my tangent. Where were we going before that?
Olympic trials.
Oh, yes.
Difference between long course and short course.
Right. Long course. I'm still figuring out long course.
What do you think your weakness is? What do you suspect?
Genetics. If you can fix that, which I am trying to basically, I'm only half joking when I say I feel like I'm rewriting my genetics. I feel like physiologically I am hardwired to not be able to finish a race. Throughout college, oh my God, it was so painful. The last 15 yards of my races, my arms would lock up. And long course, it was the last 25 meters because I'm really good at pushing off walls. And, anybody who's seen my races, they will all testify like, yeah, my push-offs, my pull-outs are great. Where I struggle with racing these kids is they're like little Energizer bunnies and they just keep going. And at a certain point, I hit a wall. And it's usually at like the 75 meter mark. And my arms start giving out on me. And it just, I just get PTSD thinking about it. And so anyway.
Well, if it makes you feel better, the first meet that I had coming out of retirement, like these numbers are going to sound awful to you, but I was swimming 100 fly long course at the Masters Nationals in Ohio.
Okay, yeah.
And I took it out in a 29, feeling pretty fresh. And then if you were watching, you would have thought a piano fell on me right at the 75 meter mark. I mean, never in any stroke I've ever taken in swimming have I felt such a difference between one butterfly and the next.
Yeah.
It was as if I was immediately injected full of lead.
Yeah.
So I went 29, 36 high.
Ouch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
But rewriting your DNA to
Yeah.
finish races.
I mean, I do something similar. I go out in like 29 low and I bring it home in like 35. I mean, and so over the last, really last couple of years, but the best effort I've put to it has come in the last maybe 8 months. So much of the work that I do in the gym, especially, and in the pool, has been with that eye on Olympic trials.
So specifically working for that back end speed.
Yeah. Now, for the last 6 months or so, I've been in short course mode. And so that is like early speed, late speed, the whole thing, right? The push offs, the pull outs, really working it. But I've always had an eye on, okay, after short course, it's long course. And even for short course, like I still need to be better at finishing races. Sectionals 3 weeks ago or whatever that was the first time I can say I finished a race like strong all the way to the wall. And it was awesome. Best feeling. I mean, I was out in 24/7 back in 28.4, 3.7 second differential, right what you want it to be. It was a thing of beauty. And I'd never, like the previous best time when I went 53.8 was 24/7, same taken out split back in 29.0. And so big improvement, right? And so I'm very hopeful just off that one swim that I have changed for enough for long course to finish that race. Because what happens is I race these kids in short course and I either beat them or stay with them. 53.1, 156. Then long course hits, and those little suckers just take off at the 75, and I die. And I'm like, damn it, I've got to figure this out. It can't be that I just cannot get the last 25 meters of a race. That just can't be true. And so I've done so much work in the weight room to take myself, and in the pool, to take myself to muscle failure and mimic that feeling.
So what does that look like kind of specifically? Do you train in the weight room where you'll go to muscle failure and then strategically try to push past it and continue performing at a high quality?
A lot of the work...
Or are you just trying to keep pushing that boundary out and out?
The way I love to train is to take myself to muscle failure and then pull back with active recovery and go right back at it, back to muscle failure. Active recovery.
And just see how long you can stay in that point.
Right. As opposed to, say, in the past where it was just, you didn't often go to muscle failure. But when you did, it was usually like, okay, just keep hitting it. Another one, another one, another one, another one, without some active recovery thrown in and keeping the heart rate up. And that's really the key. Like, it's not active recovery. It is active recovery. It is not float. It is keep the heart rate up. Stop that muscle, that specific movement that was creating the muscle failure. The in this case, the squeeze of breaststroke and the shoot, and go to something else, freestyle, backstroke. That's a different muscle movement, and give your body those specific muscles that were used that failed enough time to then hit it really well and approach muscle failure again. Even hit muscle failure as you're finishing that rep of what you're doing. And so, yes, in the weight room, I do very similar stuff.
How do you find your programming for it? I know you have a trainer that you work with.
Yeah. That was, I've been doing this on my own for so long, or I had been doing this on my own for so long. And in the pool, it is still just me, myself, and I. But I mean, at this point, I've got that figured out. Like, I've been doing this so long. The weight room, though, I was a little bit lost because I was figuring it out on my own, and that worked really well for the first 3 years of this journey. It worked really well, or maybe 4. And It was just get stronger. Well, that was easy. As much weight as I could move. Didn't matter if it was slow or fast. Just as much weight as I could pile on. Get heavier. I added 20 pounds. And just get freaking strong. And I did. I mean, I got to a point where I was bench pressing 330 pounds. And,
Did you see a plateau with that?
I was starting to kind of level off a bit. But the biggest thing against it was, why do I need to bench press 330 pounds?
Yeah, because kind of what I'm leading into is I was in a very similar position as you. When I finished swimming in college, I just took all of that passion for swimming and transitioned it to the weight room. Just got super, super strong, and noticed very quickly I was getting faster in sprints. But up until a certain point, your kind of power to weight ratio for swimming starts to teeter off. You see a lot of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And I started to notice that what led me onto this tangent, that it's not so much how much weight you're moving or
how fast
how
you're moving
long,
it.
but yeah, exactly how fast you're moving it and how you're moving it.
Yeah. And if we were just doing 25s, then it's, in my opinion, it's purely about strength. Like, I need to keep, if I was just doing racing at 25, then I need to keep hitting bench and all these things and just move as much weight as I can, because I just need to be able to dive in and just freaking power for 4 or 5 strokes. That's it. But I started having this, when I hit 53.8, I was still, that was my best time before sectionals. And I did that December of 2021. And so that was all great and everything. But then I got into a period where I was not progressing in the water. And December 2021, then in March of 2022, I for the first time did not get a best time in the 100. And then I got into long course, and I was eyeing that Olympic trials time, and I got slower, and it felt awful. And so I started rethinking, like, okay, wait a minute. Again, what good is bench pressing 400 pounds ever going to do me? I'm dying in these events. That has nothing to do with how much weight you can move. It has everything to do with how fast you can move it, how long, and doing it properly.
Do you even go to the point where you try to program or work with your trainer to program your weight routines so that they mimic your swim? So for example, if you're doing a 200 breaststroke, not only are you doing, let's say, rows or hang cleans, movements that are translatable, but also for the effort level and the time period. It's like 100 breaststroke, you're going to go as hard as you can for 55 seconds or 50 seconds in the weight room at that intensity, and then completely back off.
Right. I'm not there yet. I know Jason Lezak used to do some of that kind of work. And it's an interesting idea. A lot of what I do is based on, okay, go to muscle failure. And once I hit that point, and so it's not as much like, all right, let's just pace it out over 50 seconds, whatever. But no, when I had such a terrible long course season last year, and for the first time in 3 years, failed to go a best time in either of my events, I was like, all right, I got to change some stuff. And I don't know, I don't have a kinesiology degree, no certifications and none of that. All I know is I don't know what I don't know. And I got to find somebody who can help me figure this out. And so I hooked up with this trainer who has been wonderful. Doesn't know a lick about swimming, but we collaborate. And I tell him, all right, look, these are the motions that I have to do. And these are the issues I have. This is where I'm strong. This is where I'm weak. I need to get better at this. I need to get better at finishing a race because my biceps lock up and all these things. And so from that, he takes and he's like, okay, well, here are some ideas. And we start messing with those ideas. And the movements that I do now in the weight room could not be more different than the movements I did a year ago at this time, which a year ago at this time, it was actually fairly traditional. It was bench press, deadlift, At the time, my knees still weren't good enough for squats, but now they're great, in part because of all this cool work I'm doing. And some pull-ups, bent over rows, and then like biceps, triceps.
Right.
You
So
know.
it's like all your traditional compound
Yeah.
lifts and some bodybuilding stuff.
Yeah. And now, like shit, I am using resistance bands on my bars, heavy duty chains. I don't know if you've ever worked with chains.
Oh, yeah.
It is really cool stuff that is applying. And I feel like I am so dialed in at this point to what I need to do. It's like this beautiful symphony. I mean,
You think that's the biggest change that you've made in the last few years is what you're doing on land versus then in the water?
yeah, water
I mean,
has
you do some cool stuff in the gym. Like,
well, that's Kevin's
and
credit.
I mean, you don't know my background that much. I don't think you would be impressed by anything I've ever done in the water. But I am 100% confident that if we did a dry land workout together, you would look at me and be like, this guy's made from a different breed. But a lot of the stuff that you do, I admire, like picking up sandbags or medicine balls and then chucking them against the wall with like a chest press and all your different mobility exercises as well.
Yeah, that's specific.
Highly functional.
Yeah, it's very functional. That's exactly it. I've moved to function over strength. And like, I just never considered, it never occurred to me that it mattered how fast you moved a weight, just that you moved as much as you could. And you know, again, going back to what I was saying, so many swimmers, I think, are in the dark about why they do what they do, what they should be doing versus what they are doing. And
to give you some hope and kind of on a tangent, the college strength and conditioning coach that I used to work with back in Madison, I still follow him on social media.
Okay.
I've been seeing a lot of stuff that he implements in the gym. I mean, he's a great guy. He's always looking for different approaches, trying different things out, has hundreds of certifications. He has these special cameras and sensors that he puts on the barbells when they're doing compound lifts that can track the speed you're moving. So he'll be as detailed, where he's not even going for heavy weight, but he just wants you to move the bar as fast as possible, get the most acceleration in a certain rep.
Right.
So it seems like some of that kind of stuff is trickling into the system.
Yeah, I wish I had that sort of thing. That's really cool.
Yeah, because kids are spoils these days and they don't even know it.
Oh my God. It's changed, but back in the day at Texas, we were so old school, and so proud of that we would work out in the original gym that the school built in the stadium. It was the original like football players gym in the stadium that was as big as like, I mean, my gosh, not maybe twice the size of this room that we're in. And we just piled in there, and it was basic, we got new equipment, but it was just, this is your bench press. Yeah. There's your squat, here's your pull-up bar. And there was none of this like fancy machinery stuff. Yeah.
Like Rocky Balboa versus Ivan Drago.
yeah, basically. And so yeah, it's, it is, and I will say, it is really nice having someone to help you be accountable. I do miss that. I think for a lot of people, it's hard to break off on your own and just be an island.
Yeah, how do you do that? I mean, you've been self-coached for so long, and until, as far as I know, what you told me, you just recently been starting to work with the personal trainer.
Yeah.
One, how do you critique yourself outside of taking a lot of video and then filming it? And then two, how do you stay competitive? Let's start with the feedback part first.
Feedback.
Yeah. Like, how do you analyze your own stroke? Because as big of an effort as you do put into it, there's going to be a lot of stuff that other people could pick up technically.
Couple things. Video. Yeah. I am really dialed into my stroke when I swim, as I swim.
Like body awareness.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this for so long and like when I started this journey, I knew my stroke wasn't good enough. It wasn't where it needed to be because the breaststroke has really evolved. Comparing Adam Peaty to Brendan Hansen or any of the top guys back in the day, it's a much more aggressive, like lunging, slamming the forehead kind of stroke. And I looked at Adam Peaty was my model because I saw a lot of similarity there. Both of us very strong. Like I've always been very strong, and I've always had a really high like body density. And I know this sounds weird, but one of the things when I started on this journey and I was figuring out, okay, what do I have to do to reach my goal of breaking 55 in the 100 breast? Well, I've made this recognition that I am like oddly dense to the point where, I get a new mattress, like a bed mattress, and within a couple of days, it's just cratered. I get the firm, no way, sir, you can dent this mattress. And a couple days just, and that just always struck me as really weird. I'm like, wow, what am I made of? And so I started thinking through that. I was like, okay, well, if I'm that dense, then I got to be stronger to pull that density through the water. And, you look at Adam Peaty and geez, that guy is huge. And he's super strong. Like, okay. And look at his stroke. Like he just lunges, all that it's amazing. So I'm going to do that. And the first step was getting myself much higher out of the water. Because I grew up with the kind of low Barrowman wave kind of stroke where you
keep your chin tucked and you try to barely get the mouth out.
Yeah, you look like a wave. You don't do this like popping thing and then this
up and over, right?
Yeah. So the first step was get up. And I spent so much time for years working on getting up. And then it was, all right, now I'm up. I got to get forward. And it's just slam the face, make it hurt, slam my face. That was always my goal. No water up the nose and losing my cap, little bit of pain sensation on the face. Those were my markers for how I knew I was doing okay. And coupled with video and to confirm, because as we all know, like your body will tell you one thing, like, yeah, you're doing great, dude. Because you're thinking like, this is what I want you to do. And so your body's like, got it. Hopefully he won't notice. And then you look at your video and you're like, damn it.
Yeah.
That's not at all what happened.
That's not what it felt like. I think gymnastics is like the perfect cue of that. I always admired gymnasts. I taught myself how to handstand. Oh yeah. And you feel like you're perfectly stacked and your shoulders and elbows are completely locked out. And then you look at a video and you look all crooked and you're kind of sideways.
Right.
And then you're in the water and it's a completely different element. So same sensation. You feel like you're this way, your hips are that way. And so video's invaluable.
And these days I'm so dialed into it now. Like I feel like after 4.5 years of working on this, I feel like my breaststroke is almost where it needs to be. And I am certainly in a place where I can feel if I'm getting high, if I'm getting forward, if there's a pause right here where there shouldn't be a pause, if my hips are high enough, all these things. Still rely on video. And little shout out to Jackie at who coaches the Masters team at the North Dallas YMCA, Town North, Simonis. In the fall and winter, just because of scheduling and everything, I have to work out at the same time as them. And she's been so great about like timing me when I ask her to, even though she's got, her swimmers and I'll say, hey, this is what I'm working on. Tell me what you think. And she'll give me that feedback. Because it's impossible to do what I do 100% on your own. Like just without any feedback, any resources whatsoever.
I think in order to do it too, you also have to be very dialed in.
Yeah.
It's not just anybody can walk it into it, even that mindset.
Yeah. And I rely on feedback as much as I can get. I go to meets and at this point now I'm so well known on deck that I can go to, I know so many coaches and I can be like, hey, can you video this for me? or watch this. And I'll do that for like multiple, I'll go to multiple coaches and I'll say, hey, can you video? Hey, can you watch me? And that way I get as much feedback as I can after a race, particularly from that coach I mentioned earlier who coaches a lot of the guys that I compete against. I always try to get his feedback, and he's brutally honest. I did a vlog episode on this, and I don't want to insult him. He is Korean. I hope I got that right. I'm pretty sure.
I'll look at the vlog and I'll fact check it, and we'll make sure it's displayed properly.
But anyway, he is he wasn't born in the U.S. and so he doesn't have that American tendency to like make you feel good.
Right? No sugarcoating.
He is just straightforward. And there was this one time that I had a race after the 100. I went to him and it was not good. But I was hoping to get, some more something more than just not good. And that's all he had for me. He was like, that was bad. I'm like, okay, but there was something that was good about it. No, it was just bad. And but you need I don't think in this day and age, not to sound like that old guy, but like in this day and age, I don't think that there is enough of that where it's just straight up, dude, that wasn't good enough. You're better. Get your shit together, And I miss having that. I do wish I had a teammate or a coach, somebody to be like, pick it up, like get your shit, or just to once in a while say, hey, great job. So I've got this like multiple person disorder going on because I got to be like, great job, James. You really did. No, dude, that was shit. Get back in the water.
Right. And then on top of that, you're trying to pull from every single coaching resource you can to also tell you.
Yeah. And so I try to solicit a lot of feedback, but ultimately, yes, day in and day out, in the pool for sure. It's largely me, myself, and I have to write my sets. I have to go based on what my body is telling me, how I feel. I've learned to do that well, obviously, but you do second guess yourself a lot because your body says, I need a break. And you're like, okay, I'm determined. My new self is determined to listen to you and not be the stupid swimmer who goes, shut up.
And you have those two little angel and demon on each shoulder fighting against each other.
Yeah. I'm determined to listen to my body. And if it's truly telling me, stop, then I'll stop. But, it took a while to train myself to do that, to be comfortable doing a 500 and getting out. Like at no point in any taper, at any point in my career prior to this, was it as little as a 500. The only way you got out after a 500 is if you were like dying, like literally dying. You broke something. Right? Who does a 500 and gets out? But that's how I'm structured. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday might be 1,000 because to bridge the weekend because I take Sunday off. But Wednesday, Friday, 700-ish just to warm up for the weight room. And for so long, I would guilt trip myself as I was getting out of the water. Like, yo, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Get back in the water.
Like finish the grand.
It was like, no. I'm just doing enough to warm up for the pool, for the weight room.
Don't you also use that kind of warm up as almost free time to do whatever you need to work on? So I've heard you say a few times that you use it that you just jump in and you have fun. If you feel like your dolphin kicks need some work, you'll feel them out.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to throw in vertical kick, dolphin kick. It makes me feel good. I like to throw in some breath control, lots of drill work. Like Cobra, and this was when I was changing my stroke, the very first drill that I did and relied on. I did so much Cobra drill. Was just pressing out and kind of pausing and then popping way the hell up and then slamming forward. And that was it. Stop. One time. Boom. Done.
Is that the one where you're going for pain sensations in your face?
Kind of.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. And then kind of reset, shake it out, reset, and go again. And so I do stuff like that where it's just it's just about reinforcing good habits, having fun, and not worrying if I did enough or if it was hard enough or fast enough. It's just enough.
So on the other side of it, how do you stay competitive? And I guess this probably isn't the case for you, just from the conversation we've had. You clearly have no problem motivating yourself. I think even at that point, though, you can't replace competing against somebody else and just that all out sheer willpower to push yourself past your own limits in order to outtouch someone, or even the camaraderie of doing a set with somebody else in practice. So
Yeah.
how do you deal without that, or having somebody to train with regularly or even compete against regularly?
I think I do a really good job. And again, this just goes to how I'm wired, because I think a lot of people would struggle to self-motivate to do a hard muscle failure set, by yourself, where no one else is giving you a hard time or just motivate, saying, good job, man, stay with it. I think this is one of the things I do really well. And it's hard to say, am I maxing it and making the absolute most of it and having it be at a point where it is equal to having competition, right? Because you never know. There's no way to know that. I push myself so hard. I mean, I pretend I'm racing somebody. And if I'm not pretending I'm racing somebody, I'm racing the clock. And in my head, that clock is ticking up, 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 up. And I'm trying to stop it as quickly as I can. And I fight. But yeah, I think it would be hard to argue that I wouldn't get any more benefit from having somebody there next to me.
Is there any kind of mental tools that you rely on in order to get yourself into that headspace?
Anger, bitterness. Yeah.
You want to explain it?
Completely.
Sounds deep.
Completely no. Because it gets into some sensitive stuff. But I show up. This is what I always. This is my canned answer. I show up every day because I love it. I get in the car and I get over there and I get on deck because I just love being on deck and in the water. And when the shit hits the fan and I've got to go and I've got to push myself and do more, it is anger and bitterness that get me there. I am so, even to this day, so upset with how my college career ended. Because at Texas at the time, if you did not qualify for NCAAs and we won a championship, which, we did every couple of years on average, right? And my first 3 years there, we won a national championship. If you didn't qualify, you didn't get a ring. And by extension, you didn't get the Longhorn tattoo. And that meant a lot to me. You can say, oh, that's too materialistic, but fuck it. That ring, those 3 rings represent so much work. You can't understand unless you've been through it as a college swimmer, what level of dedication goes into that. And it's your life, it is your life. And so to finish my career, not going what I knew I was capable of. I knew I was capable of 54. And that's all, it's crazy to say that now because 54, that high schoolers are going 54 left and right. 54 was a big deal back then. And my time, 55.2, was just 0.4-ish off of what it would take to qualify for that meet. 4 tenths. Down to my bones, I knew I had that in me. And, to then on top of it, not be allowed, to have the thing, that tangible thing that represents such sacrifice, such dedication. And so coming out of college, I was like, I am going to prove this. I was capable. I was always capable. And it was almost 19 years from one best time to the next one. And that next one being the 54 that I needed to go that would have gotten me to NCs. That's a certain level of crazy right there. Most people have enough sense to move on. But right or wrong, I just couldn't. It ate at me. And so, what motivates me? It still does. Less so now. Like that, the simple goal of going 54 and not getting those rings and not getting the tattoo. That all like burned.
It's just
burned
like
me.
An emotional nuclear power plant.
Yeah. But now it's shifted a bit. And it's much more about, okay, I've done way more than I ever dreamed of. I never would have thought I could do 53-1 and 156. And so now it's just, what's my potential? What can I do? And so, that is really what's pushing me now. But when it gets tough, like I still go back to, damn it, coulda, shoulda, woulda.
No,
So,
I can absolutely relate with you 100% on that. And I mean, this podcast episode's all about you, so I won't get into all of the nitty-gritty details of it. But the biggest part of all my motivation swimming growing up was my dad. And he passed away when I was 17, very abruptly of cancer.
Oh.
So just when the going gets tough, you show up because you love it, you need to push through something, and you have that same kind of emotional fuel.
Yeah.
So that's my very short, summary, canned answer of being able to relate to you on that one.
Yeah.
I definitely get it.
You got to have something to drive you. And it's weird. For as different as the training I do now is, it's almost harder because, like, at least emotionally and like mentally. Back in college and high school, all that stuff, like it was just a blur, right? You woke up, you dragged your butt to practice, you got in, you somehow defied your expectations. Like, there's no way I can even make it through this practice. And then you like pop off a really good practice, and then you go back to dragging your ass to class.
I guess the best part too is that all of it's structured too, right?
Yeah.
So at the least of it, you just follow what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. I mean, there is some nice comfort in that. But it's like just this one long grind, and you're not really getting up mentally, psyched up for any one particular thing. You don't even know what's coming, right? Usually it's like, okay, you get out of practice, you get out of the pool, and it's like, all right, here's the main set. And you're joking with your teammates like, oh man, we are so fucked. And you're trying to figure out how you're going to get up to go this. But since I'm my own coach, I know what's coming. And regardless, every day is make or break it for me. And I mean, the music that I play in my headphones, you would think I'm getting ready to race. And it's really wild that I haven't burned out on that yet. Because, try to imagine you go to work every day, pick your profession as an accountant or an engineer, and you're going into work like, sure, I'm going to fucking kill this. Like, imagine trying to do that every day. And, it's draining. But that has been a big part of my success. It's like, okay, I'm going to put everything I've got into this thing, this weight room, this pool practice, like it is the only thing that matters. And I think that having that kind of focus and not just, I don't want to say but kind of meandering through a big, long practice, I think it has really prepared me to race.
Do you have that same kind of dedication for everything else that you do outside of the pool as well?
I
mean, not necessarily outside of swimming, but when it comes to even recovering for your workouts. Let's say you're doing an ice bath or heat exposure. I don't know if that's part of your protocol.
Yeah.
But diet as well, sleep, everything at that intensity.
Yeah. I mean, I don't listen to psych up music before I take an ice bath, but, you know, I get a lot of inquiries from people, you know, people who hit me up, email, social, all that stuff. And they want to know like how they can do what I do. Let's put it this way. Every second of my day is with an eye to how it will affect my swimming. This thing that I'm going to put into my mouth and eat, should I be eating this right now? Is this going to help me? You know, am I hydrating properly? You know, prior to actually with the work of a nutritionist, so I talked to a nutritionist, prior to about a year ago, you know, I wouldn't have this with me right now, hydrating during our interview.
It's been in the back of my head the whole time that I left my water bottle in the car too.
You know, it is everything. I mean, it's literally everything that I do. It's if I'm going to go out for an errand or whatever it may be, am I going to be able to eat the kind of food that I need to eat while I'm out that I'm supposed to eat at that time? Am I going to have to bring this, you know, even if it's a short trip, to stay hydrated because I have to hit a certain number of ounces in the day. I have to pull my butt off the couch at night and do my recovery stuff. That it's not fun. I don't get any enjoyment out of it, but damn it if it doesn't make me feel so much better the next day. There is nothing I do that is without an eye to this.
Yeah, you're just dialed in all the time.
Yeah. And I think that's what gets a lot of people. I start talking about this and you can see them processing. They're like, there's no way. Like,
because I imagine a lot of people come to you and they want what's the 10 steps that I can get to doing this in 10 days? And then you start leaning into it.
Yeah.
And like you said,
yeah,
I mean, a very difficult problem to solve.
Right. You know, human beings are big on fads and these
path of least resistance.
Yeah, basically, you know, look at dieting. I mean, keto, Atkins, paleo. Like we all have these quick fixes that'll get us where we want to be. And we have it in swimming too. It's like, oh, USRPT was the thing for a while. Because, you just need to do this thing and that'll get you where you want to go. And no, it's holistic. It's everything. From the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, it has to be boom, boom, boom. You know, all these things have to fall in line. And it can't just be, and I get this so much. Or I'll just even overhear like master swimmers talking about they're going to improve their sprinting by doing 425s fast at the end of practice. You know, after doing a grinding practice of 400s, they're going to throw in 425s sprint. And that's how that's their big idea for like getting faster. It's that kind of thing, right? No, you have to change everything. And that's the part that gets most people. And not even so much like lack of will. I am admittedly, I know this, in a very fortunate position. I own my own business. I have a very supportive family and wife. If I had a typical job, one that like I had to travel for, especially, the normal life things that people have to deal with, I don't know how this would happen. I would find a way, damn it.
Yeah.
But
it might not be as pretty of a picture.
Yeah. And I don't know that I would be exactly as far along as I am. Most people have to contend with normal problems that, and you swim masters. You probably hear this a lot. Somebody goes on a trip. And they're like, oh man, I haven't swum in a week. This is my first day back.
Yeah, every day.
Those words never enter my mouth. Like nothing interferes with what I do. Barring something important for family, because family does take priority. But barring that, nothing gets in the way. And that I think is something it's hard for people to wrap their heads around. It's like, wait, nothing? Like, really? You don't have something come up? And it's like, no. If I adjust the rest of my life to make this work, and I'm lucky. Most people just can't logistically do that. But my mission right now is to be the best I can be. And to do that as a 41-year-old, life doesn't really allow for that.
Yeah. It takes a huge commitment, a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm in any really position even to speak on it.
Yeah.
You're just making wild assumptions. I can only imagine.
I go on vacation. If we go on a trip.
I saw the video that you posted in, where was it? St. Lucia, right? St. Lucia. You showed the different pools, what you're doing here and there.
But I mean, shoot, if we go, let's say there was many years ago, we went to Disney World. I was up getting an Uber to that really famous pool in Orlando where they have so many big meets.
Is it that YMCA with all the open doors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a shed, but it's huge and it's freezing cold. Why? Oh, if you are managing that pool and listening to this podcast, why does it have to be that cold? But I was up at like 4 a.m. getting an Uber to get to that pool, when it opened at like 5. To get my workout in and get back in time to help get the kids up. Because I think at that point it was just 2 kids. Our third had not arrived yet. And they were the ages of like 3 and 6, and I didn't want to leave my wife with that whole responsibility of being on vacation and getting the kids up and getting them to breakfast and all that. So, I made sure that I got back and in time to help with that. But there was no excuse good enough for not getting my butt up at 4 whatever in the morning and not getting over there.
I was doing the same thing for Christmas 2 years ago. My family went to, it was somewhere north of Orlando. I think it was at Palm Beach. So I was waking up 4:30, driving 45 minutes to the YMCA to swim with the Lasers Masters group. Met some awesome coaches there.
Oh, yeah?
But yeah, same thing. Getting back before 7 to help the family do everything.
Yeah.
So definitely get it.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of commitment. So let me flip it on you. You're dialed in all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What could you do better? Or what kind of threads are you trying to pull at in order to make your routine better?
Well, right now I can only think about how bad I have to pee. So
go for it. We'll edit it out.
Can we pause this for a second? All right. I just realized you may have had to put up with that one ply that we have in there right now.
Oh, didn't even bother me.
I want you to know we are not animals. It is a mistake that is there. We are 2-ply.
I'll act like it never even happened.
All right. So how do I get faster?
Yeah. What are your ideas that you're working on?
It's hard because I've pulled all the big strings and I've done a 180 on everything that you can. That anything that factors into racing, I've done it. nutrition, recovery, swimming, of course, lifting.
Do you track biomarkers? You take like blood drawn tests?
No,
see what your cortisol is, what your norepinephrine, adrenaline levels, testosterone.
Not beyond physicals, you know. And that's because I'm such a I swear like ALS is coming for me or cancer, or I'm so paranoid about that stuff. It just sneaks up on you. It's not fair. So no, like I wish I could. I'm all into analytics. Like I'm very much a numbers person. But at this point, it's weird. It's weird to say, you know, in the same sentence that I've pulled all the big strings, and yet I still have much more to improve. The question I get asked a lot is, well, how much more do you think you have in you? Like, how much longer can you keep doing this? And all I know, and all I've known for the last couple of years is about a year ahead. And so far, every year that I've finished a season, I've been able to say, I know I've got another year in me. And right now, I know I've got another year in me of best times. Doesn't mean they're guaranteed to happen, but I know I am capable. And so, okay, well, how do you keep improving then if like there aren't any big strings left to pull? And it's just in the sport, as you know, it's the sum of the pieces that add up to a really big improvement. I still have technical improvements to make in my stroke. I still have improvements to, you know, I've only just begun, I believe, reaping the benefits of my new functional strength training. All these new movements that are very applicable to what I do in the pool, I'm getting better and better and better at those, whether it's going faster, moving more weight, whatever, or more reps, whatever it may be. I keep getting better at those. And pool wise, swimming wise, when the improvements happen in lifting and the improvements happen in technique, even though my sets have not really changed much at all in the last 3 years, my performance on those sets, which are 100% about racing, prepping to race, my performance there improves. And as long as that continues to happen, I know I'm going to go faster, you know. And just going back to our beginning of the conversation, it helps your confidence immensely when you can see day in and day out the improvement in such a way that it applies to what you hope to achieve at the end. As opposed to like, if you take a breaststroker, what good does it do me to go from averaging 3 minutes on 8 300s freestyle pull to averaging 2 minutes and 50 seconds in the span of whatever, months or a year? It doesn't matter. I'm not going to go faster in 100 breaststroke. And so it's little teeny threads. It's the little details that make such a difference.
So just keep fine-tuning all those little things that you're working on.
You know,
until you get to a point where you're no longer seeing the benefits, and then it's time to kind of reevaluate.
Yeah,
and find the next string.
Yeah, I mean, it's you have to keep evolving in this sport. You can never say, okay, I've found the way and I just have to stay here forever. You don't have to completely revolutionize what you're doing every year. You just have to make tweaks to adjust. Okay, looking at my race, I failed to do these things the way I needed to.
Right. So it's kind of just finding one bottleneck at a time.
Yeah.
Opening it wider.
So I'll give you an example. 2 things, broad and specific. 100 breast, prelims, sectionals. My stroke count, 5'7", 6.7. What happened on that third 25 was I finished my pullout and I had just a fraction of a second where I held it and I didn't get right into my stroke, which then dominoed into only 6 strokes instead of a 7th stroke. It was a long 6 instead of a 7th that would have gotten me into the wall quicker. So I had that long 6 into the wall. If not for that little hold at the end of my pullout, probably would have been 52. So from here on out, I need to, and I'm embarrassed to even say it because one of the things I hyper focus on when I practice is getting out of my pullout quickly. And I let that happen. So obviously I still have things to work on there. From a more macro level, the pendulum swung back in terms of my speed versus endurance. What got me to 53.8 in December of 2021 was heavy strength training, just power. I was able to take it out in 24/7, only bring it back in 29.0 like I told you. But racing a 50 at that meet, it was the KMSC Pro-Am, which does the 50s of the strokes, which I love. 24.1. Great. I mean, that's fast. I know, even though sectionals doesn't do 50s, I know I would bet all my money there's no way I would have been able to go 24.1. I have lost raw speed that I used to have. And so right now, as I head to long course, a lot of what I'm doing is very focused on functional, finishing a race, endurance. But when I get into fall, I need to swing back and incorporate a little bit more strength. I pulled away from that a lot with my trainer through the fall and winter. And so I need to swing back a little bit, not all the way for sure, but a little bit so that I can get back to taking it out really fast. And now that I can hold on, well, I've got that, keep the 28.4. Let's see if we can bring that down to like 28.2 or 3 and bring the first 50 down to like 24.5. So on a more macro level, that's what I'm looking at.
Overall big picture. Do you have a prediction for what you think you'll go?
Oh, man.
I'd be willing to bet you already have it written down somewhere on a gold sheet. Probably on your mirror upstairs in your bathroom.
No, my wife would not allow that. That would be bad decorating. I actually don't get into a specific like that. I don't say, okay, 52.84 or whatever. And I know a lot of people do, they put it on their water bottles. Or, they put the qualifying time for the meet that they want to go to on their water bottles or piece of paper or whatever. And I don't do that. What I certainly think about it all the time. I'm like, okay, what do I think I can get away with? Obviously, I know 52.9 because of that one little issue on the third 25. I think my potential for this upcoming December is somewhere between 52.5 and 52.8, and then somewhere in the 155 for the 200. But that's something I'll right now it's just 102.1 for trials.
Right. So that's the only number on your mind.
Yeah. Screw the 200. The long 200 is dead to me. I hate that. That's a different sport. It's different. I hate that. I hate that event.
But I guess in your case, where you like to dial everything in, is just one less thing to focus on and one more thing to master even harder.
Well, that's true. I am I feel kind of ashamed saying this, but I am kind of excited to go into a racing season now over the next few weeks, only focusing on the 100 and like forget the 2. I don't even know if I'm going to race that to be honest with you. I used to be of the traditional mindset, like, okay, well, I suck at the 200, but at least it can help my 100, you know? And I may just say, screw it. Like, no 200. That's hard for me to do because I am one stubborn SOB. Like I do not give up on things. And so to write off the 200 and just be like, oh, screw that. I say that, but then part of me in the back of my mind is going, trying to figure out how I can make it work. Because I did the same thing with the short 200. I gave up on that. That was dead to me too. Until I took the pressure off and I started just literally messing with, playing around with it. And like I would go to a meet and I would swim the 200 like once a year at the KMSC Pro-Am. And I would go and I would just have fun. How fast could I go? Averaging like 3 strokes a length. Just fun. And then if I decided to, like on the last 50, if I was feeling it, I would push on the last 50. I would like race that one. And what usually motivated me to do that is if some kid was like right ahead of me and I knew I could track them down, like I would do that and I would take off. But I would finish it and I would be like, that was fun. That was great. For once in my life, that race didn't suck. And it was such a freeing feeling. And it evolved to where I was like, okay, I'm curious. If instead of, let's say, 3 strokes a length, what if I averaged 4? Like, what would happen? And so that little DPS game, distance per stroke game, turned into what has become my strategy now for the 200, which is power, distance per stroke through the first 5 lengths, and then turn it up. Use my strengths, which is strength, like just that ability to push and pull down. Use that to carry me through the first 5 lengths and then turn it up. And I can't tell you how much different. It's a complete 180 on my view of the 200. I dreaded it. I hated it. And now I look forward to it. I'm like, yes, this is my love doing this.
It's kind of beautiful how that all manifested too, from just playing a game out of it and not taking it seriously to finding something that works super well for you.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, but the problem, I have the benefit of having done this for 35 years. And who is in their right mind is going to, who's in the prime of their career, whether they're 18 years old or 24 years, whatever it may be, and be like, at this race, I'm just going to just mess around, especially your coach isn't going to tell you to do that. If you do, you're going to get shit for it. So who's going to do that? And it's only when you have nothing to lose and you're just like, I'm done. F it. That maybe you can really start to have some awareness, some understanding of what to actually do. And it was that same attitude that got me. This is a cool story. It was the same attitude that got me my first break in the 100. At KMSC Pro-Am, December 2019, I will never forget. Prelims, I sucked. I was 55.6. And I was kind of devastated. I had changed my training for over a year to this whole like swim different, less is more, swim different thing. And I was like, really? And at that point, at that moment, I was convinced, 55 is the best I am ever going to be. Damn it. I thought I had more. And I was fully prepared to scratch because I had done this meet for a few years. And my usual play was do prelims, scratch, don't show up for finals. Because I had I had a very young family. My kids were all very little at the time. And it was like, see what I can do in prelims. Probably not going to be much. Go home. And so I was going to do the same thing. I was like, damn, 55.6. Slower than I had gone earlier in the year. And I went to the scratch table. and determined I was just going to scratch out and go home. And in prelims, I had raced Cody Miller. Well, I swam in the same pool as Cody Miller. And so that was, you know, that's always cool, right? You race one of the fast guys. And I went to the scratch table and I saw his name on there. He hadn't scratched out yet. And so I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'll probably just go 55 again, but I'll get to race one more time next to Cody Miller. And that in and of itself is just kind of worth it, kind of cool. And I got behind the blocks. I remember thinking, fuck it. I don't care about the time. Like, this just is what it is. And I'm just going to have fun being here. And I dove in, swam the first 75 the way I normally do, came off the turn, and fully expecting the normal shutdown of my body. Cause, you know, I told you that's what happens. It's like my body shuts down in the last 25. But I got this determination in me. And, you know, cause there was this other guy right there, another guy. And I was like, I'm going for it. I'm just going for it. I'm giving it. And that sounds strange because when do you not go for it? Like, when do you not give it your all? Right. But it was like this next level of determination that got into me. And I was just like, I don't care how ugly this looks. I'm just going to freaking go as hard as I can and get to that wall. And thank goodness I did, you know, 50. And it was so funny. It was like 54.8. And normally when you do that, right, you look at your teammates and you're like, yeah, right? You look at your coach, your friends, your family. And I had nobody there. And so I started to look around for somebody who would understand like what that meant, like how significant that was. Almost 19 years to see that time. And I looked around, I was like, yes. So it was, it was cool.
I think these days you probably have a lot more people in your corner.
I do.
Both on the pool deck and off.
I do. At sectionals, it was really cool. So finals of the 100 breast, I think. Yeah, it was 100 breast. They were doing the names. Lane 1, so-and-so. Lane 2, so-and-so. Lane 5, the man, the myth, the legend, James Fike. And there were these guys, these high school guys on the side of the pool that erupted with like, yeah. And after the race, they wanted a picture with me. And so, yeah, it's like, now that I think about it, now that, this came up, I told you originally what drove me was anger and bitterness. And that has since evolved into like these new goals and what's my potential. But along with that, it's the community and the support that I get when I go to meets, because it's every meet I go to, somebody comes up and talks to me. People might want a picture, an autograph. Like, it's just really humbling. Like, people tell me, oh, this is so inspiring what you're doing. And I don't even see it that way. Like, I'm just chasing my goals.
Right. And I mean, kind of from your story when you were racing Cody Miller, you've gone from swimming wicked fast to not having anybody on deck who knew what it meant from you to having a lot of people on deck recognize you.
Yeah.
What do you kind of see coming with that? Do you feel a responsibility? Do you feel like it's something you need to manage? Or do you kind of feel like you can continue doing exactly what you're doing and kind of just be humble with anything else and what anybody else pays attention to?
Well, I've tried not to let the fame and fortune paparazzi go to my head. It's
because I mean, I don't see you slowing down anytime soon. I mean, eyes are going to keep turning.
I don't feel it either. But I don't know if this answers your question, but sometimes kids come up to me and they'll start asking me like, do you have any advice? Even for not just like breaststroke, but just training, or for a different like 100 fly or something like that. And so it's fun to be able to talk to them about how what I'm doing can help them, or just what I've learned might be able to help them. And, because obviously I've learned so much in this sport. I feel like I need to pass, I need to make it worth it beyond just, a time on the clock. Like, how can I pass this information off to somebody? And well, it's also jogging my memory that, one of the other things that I view as my responsibility is using my experience and whatever tiny pedestal I have, to try to influence our sport and change people's minds about what should and what should be, what should not be, why, how, all these questions that go unanswered. I try to be as much of a voice as I can for a little bit of reason, a little bit of sanity, in this crazy sport, that we make even crazier with, those notions that are so deeply rooted in an era that was really had no idea what it was doing. And so I try to, I want to change how we do this sport.
So for the people listening, if you can put it all in a message, just one piece of advice that they could take away with, what would it be?
Gosh, that's really hard. Because again, I did a vlog episode on this where I recognize that I am an outlier as far as, training by myself and just charting my own path. Certainly age groupers, high schoolers, they can't just go, peace, I'm going to go do my own thing. And they can't, even within even a master swimmer, master swimmers have lots of leeway, right? It's like, I don't feel like doing that.
But you can't just say, hey, I need you guys to clear out of this lane so I can do sprint 50s today.
Yeah, you can't just be like, you guys are good over there, but I got this lane because I'm doing my own thing. Yeah. Good luck. And so how do you take my whole message of do things totally differently when you're in a system, a whole system that is entrenched and doing it the way it's always done it? And to that, I tell, those age groupers, high schoolers especially, think about your body as like a bank, and come up with a list of things that you want to pay for, okay, from the bank. List of things that you need to do. And this is tricky because, again, when I talk to these swimmers and I start telling them, this is what you're doing, this is why you should not be doing it because of these hydrodynamics and all these, these things. This is what you should be doing. It's the eyes glaze over because they've never heard any of this stuff before. And so for them to like compile a list of what they need to be doing, it's oftentimes hard. They don't know what they need to be doing. Coach tells them what they need to be doing. So go to your coach with race video in hand. Say, what am I doing wrong? Like, why am I stuck? Tell me in this video the things that will make, if I do them better, what will make me go faster? That is your wish list of things that you want to pay for. You got this bank over here. The typical approach is just toss all the money out at every practice to all the things and like hope some of it gets you what you want. But instead of doing that, take the money that you have, because you have a fine effort. The money is your effort, the amount of energy you have. You have a finite amount, and start applying it to the things that you want. The most important things that will get you the times that you want. And all that other stuff that you don't want, well, it would be nice to say, I'm not doing that. I'm going to sit this one out. Can't do that. But don't kill yourself trying to make that happen. How many swimmers dive in at warm up and fly? They sprint through it, and they don't go much faster than they in the main set than they did in warm up. That's an easy one right there. If you're a breaststroker and you're given a bunch, let's use this example again, a bunch of 300s, freestyle pull. Don't try and break the world record and hold the best time you've ever held. Make it applicable to you, okay? Back off a little bit on some things like the overall effort, but make sure that your push-offs are killer. Your breakouts are awesome because those things apply to your breaststroke. But don't go spinning your wheels just like killing your lats and your arms on something that has nothing to do with what you do. So I go with I think I've just made this up on the fly, and I'm quite pleased with myself.
It's a good analogy, yeah.
I may have to copyright that or something.
You can make a shirt out of it.
And so, yeah, wish list, bank, that's what I would say.
Yeah, always know exactly what you need to do to improve, and then swim with the purpose to work specifically on those things.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I would summarize it.
Yeah. I like the bank thing better, though.
I agree. It sells better, too. I think we've done a solid job so far, especially on your end. I think it gives a great perspective to show people how you think and what motivates you and your whole philosophy around it, which I haven't really been able to hear of everything I've learned about you. Because it seems like every single time you come onto someone else's podcast or panel, they get very specific. They want to know, like, day to day, what does your week look like? What specific exercises you're doing in dryland.
Right.
Which here you kind of educated myself and anybody who would listen on more of your approach that helps you structure everything.
Yeah. I think my angle, and I do this at clinics too. I have a very different angle that I approach, obviously, the sport from. I'm not the Olympian with the gold medal telling you this is what you need to do to go win a gold medal. Or even the Olympian who struggled for a year or two and then got the gold medal. I think I'm pretty even though I'm swimming times that are at a very high level, my experience is relatable and pretty, I think, representative of the average swimmer, what the average swimmer goes through. And that struggle of maybe one season after another, you just don't hit it. And you have more in you, but you don't know how to get there. So that's kind of how I approach it with my clinics and stuff. When kids are looking at this old guy and going, what the hell is he doing in front of us? It's like, look, I know how you feel. I know what your mindset is behind the blocks. And it's not, how am I going to get this gold medal at the Olympics? It's, how am I going to look at myself in the mirror and tell myself that it's worth getting up the next day to take the next beating and potentially see the same freaking results, Yeah,
I think you have a very logical way of communicating it too. It's just easy for people, like you said, again, to relate to.
That's the idea.
Yeah. So let's start to wrap it up. I'm going to leave you with one question that I finish all of these with. That's, if you were in my shoes or on this side of the table, what's a topic or a question you would bring up that I haven't?
Oh, man. I may need another bathroom break to think about that.
I mean, if you think we covered everything that is key to it, that's a good answer too. This is one that I ask at every interview, whether it's a job interview or some kind of podcast. And eventually I just have this long list of really good questions to ask people if I'm ever out.
One interesting question. I don't know. This is kind of specific though.
That's cool. Everything's free, or fair game, rather.
I always find it interesting to talk about the importance of training for what you're racing for. Meaning, if you're going to swim, if you're going to race a long course race, how do you get away with not training for long course, and vice versa? You know, like the Europeans who come over from all meters and they have to race short course. In my case,
is that something you're going to be doing? Training for 50-meter pools within 25-yard pools for trials coming up and long course season?
Yeah. I mean, you have to. And then last year I made a huge effort to get long course time. Like this was back when I lived in Fort Worth, but I had a friend who was a member at a country club that had a 50-meter pool, and the only downside was it was like 3 feet deep, and so you couldn't really do a pull out. But it was long course; it was 50 meters, so to heck with it. And so I really just bent over backwards, trying to get 50-meter space. And I think it's a little bit overrated. You know, we put a lot of stock into saying, okay, it's long course season. Shoot, how do I get long course practice in? Because it is a different animal. I'll give you that. But I don't know that it's as important if you can make some modifications to your short course as we think it is. Look at how many Olympians have come from not having a place to train long course. The one that stands out for me is Ian Crocker. He came from Maine, which didn't have a long course pool. And he qualified in 2000 coming out of high school, having never done a lick of long course training. And so clearly it's possible, right? You say, oh, well, that's talent. Still, I managed 2 years ago to drop a few tenths off of my 100 long course without training any long course. And then, ironically, last year, I bent over backwards to train long course, and I just kill it, working my ass off to do as much as I can, and I go slower. So, I'm modifying what I do now, which is a 25-meter pool, thankfully. That's something, to fit long course. But I don't think it's entirely necessary. So, I don't know. There's a topic.
Right. Just ways to go about it.
Yeah. For me, it's cut out half of the pullouts. Because in long course, you lose half of your pullouts anyway.
So in that case, when you're swimming 100 breast, for example, you might just do a pullout every other wall.
If I did 100 breast, but I don't. In practice, anyway. But no, like the 30-25s I told you about, 32-25s, no pullout, straight to stroke. Try to get 11 or 12 strokes in. That's in a long course race. Yeah, I'm going to be doing like 20 and then maybe 25 or 26. So it's not quite that, but I can do 50. I can do a 50 where I go one pull out down, no pull out back, and essentially push off right. So like the break in the stroking is 2 seconds, nothing. Yeah. And get in about 20 strokes. So there are ways to do it.
Yeah. It sounds like pretty effectively too.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. I'll
be watching.
Give me a few weeks. Let's see. But I feel so optimistic right now about where I am at with long course. Long course, I've never really been able to say that. But coming out of that sectional swim and with the work I've been doing in the gym, man, I feel good. I feel like I'm excited about where I'm at. Watch it blow up in my face and I go like a 110. But I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Maybe 109.
We'll have to wait and find out.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess that's the only question I can come up with.
That's a good one. Well, thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, no, I love doing this.
You've been outstanding.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have to come back on if only if I can earn the right to come back on by getting a trials cut.
Yeah.
And
I think regardless, we should do it again. We can even go into the nitty gritty about specific topics or just talk about something completely different.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we got to talk about little plug for, you got to put Fike Swim in there.
Absolutely.
So, here's the web address.
Yeah.
www.
So we could add this as like the little intro clip to get people's attention, and then we'll put the link there and it'll be in the description.
Yeah. Maybe I can get a sale out of this, but no, I love doing these simply because I love talking about swimming. It's just, my wife was a swimmer, swam for UT.
Okay. Is that where you two met?
Yeah. But she moved on a long time ago, and she doesn't really care to talk about it. She is happy for all of my accomplishments, as well as my son, who is way into it. But I mean, and my son and I we'll talk. It's its own language, right?
Yeah.
We'll talk
shop.
What practice he did and all that, and he'll try to pull my wife into it, and he'll be like, "Mom, I did this, and this practice." My wife will just cut him off and be like, "Honey, that's great. I just don't follow anymore." So yeah, but we got each other.
There you go. I mean, you got to have some kind of balance, right?
Yeah. So anyway, I appreciate it.
Absolutely, do another one
for sure.
Cheers. Well, thank you very much for listening through the podcast. If you're enjoying it, please visit the Patreon page that I've linked in the description. Contributing over there is a great way to show me that you're getting some value out of it and that you also want to see it grow. So with that, thank you once again for listening. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next podcast. Cheers.